So the new ones, I already reviewed some of these, but like I'll talk about them because I'm not sure if they're gonna. I wasn't sure they're gonna make changes or not. And some stuff was like bugged, and some stuff was like iffy or whatever. So, all right. So brutal claws. It's a new crit anomaly. They gain 40% crits, and the crits now bleed for 40% of their magic damage over 3 seconds. There's a couple things to understand about this as to why I think this is a very good anomaly. One is that our base crit chance is 25%. If you have Infinity Edge or Jeweled Gauntlet, that brings you to 60%. So with 40% crit strike chance, you're now at 100%. There are a lot of units that are willing to take just Infinity Edge and Jeweled Gauntlet, but not necessarily go further into crit, just because they can't really, they need other stuff. So obviously, if you have like a Guard Breaker, like a QSS in your build, or like a Last Whisper, like you can stack more. But a lot of units were okay with not doing that. Some examples are like Twitch. Uh, QSS is pretty good on him, but if you like, a lot of people just go like, you can use Infinity Edge plus one plus whatever. It's not necessarily going to be a crit item, so this will take him to 100% crit anyway, and then you get the bleed like 100% of the time. Another example could be like Zoe or like Silco or like any of the users that have like important core items and then they just want some kind of multiplier. So sorcerers like having crits because they have a lot of AP already. So in Dominator it's the same thing. So like you in Silco you normally see like Nashers, a Shojin, and then like a Jeweled Gauntlet for instance. In that situation, you now are at 100% crit. Zoe would be like Shojin plus like some attack speed item, plus like Jeweled Gauntlets or like maybe like an Archangel or something because she's not like in Rebel. It's not a lot of AP. In the Sorcerer, it is quite a lot. So you're gonna lean more towards crit anyway. There's a lot of the point is there's a lot of situations where this brings you to 100% crits and then you get the effect. And okay, getting more crit strike chances alone is pretty impactful because the way crit works, the base crit damage is 140. Treat crit chance as bonus damage, where every 20% crit is like 8% bonus damage. So if you have 100% crit strike chance, you basically have 40% bonus damage. But okay, so with IE alone, normally, that's just a 24% damage increase because you have a 60% chance to do 40% more damage. So, like mathematically, this is like a 16% damage increase, assuming you can crit on your ability. If not, this is a 16% damage increase to your auto attacks, which for I guess for a lot of units that doesn't matter. But in a situation where you can make your ability crit, this makes it so that you go from 24% bonus damage to 40. That's pretty big. But another huge aspect of this anomaly is the bleed damage. So bleed is like a bit of a misunderstood stat, or not stat, like trait or effect, like status effect. Not a status, just like effect in the game. Another comparable effect is the Zyra experiment bonus that does 50% bleed damage, like true damage, I think over 2 or 3 seconds. The way you want to think about bleed is this is damage that is accessible after a certain amount of time. So you want this to be used on more consistent sources of damage as opposed to burst. What I mean is if you have a Jinx rocket, like the third cast, she ults and she hits the whole board. She's not getting bonus damage on the units that she one-shots anyway, but the units that aren't going to be one-shot are getting a huge like damage increase. So in total, the amount of damage bonus damage you're getting depends on how many cases where you're not overkilling. If you're overkilling, you're not bleeding. And if you're not bleeding, you're not doing more damage. And it's not that if you overkill it's bad. It's not that like you want them to live longer. But the point is that like bleed does more damage. Like it is a greater damage increase on sources on like situations where you are not like you're not wasting the bleed. So like there's just basically more bleed uptime, and the more bleed uptime, the more total bonus damage like the bleed is doing. I mean, I know that's like really convoluted and complicated, but the applications you want to the best use this for is on not overkill instances of damages. More specifically, it's really good on chip damage. So, like I previously mentioned, Zoe, Twitch are going to be some really good users because Zoe can and Twitch can constantly chip backline, but they're not going to kill. So you're guaranteed to get the full bonus damage of the bleed, uh, which matters. Like you're basically getting 40% bonus damage plus the extra from like a chance, and it makes them do like those things like much better than they would otherwise. Whereas in the case of Jinx, for instance, uh, if you don't kill, yeah, you're probably with the bleed, you're probably going to kill, and that like that's already like a huge like thing. But the amount of bonus damage that the bleed is doing for Jinx is lower than what it would be for Zoe or Twitch. I mean, either way, it is gonna be really strong because I mean, it'll give like Jinx crit, and then it'll like it's definitely gonna be very strong on Jinx too. But the way you use it is like it's less of a percentage damage increase for her than it would be for like Zoe Twitch, and then other instances of like similar things. I mean, okay, the other example I'll say is like Zyra, because her bleed works the same way. Only okay, this one is adaptive damage, but Zyra's is true damage. But it's the same thing. Whereas if Zyra is going to kill anyway, then the bleed doesn't do anything. But like if she's like doing more damage over a more consistent period of time, you're getting more bonus damage. So even though like you want to kind of like balance things out, getting it's basically more valuable on attack speed than it is on flat damage. I don't know. It's hard to explain. The other thing is that on PBE, this wasn't working on ability damage. I'm assuming that is fixed, in which case it's very good. If it's not fixed, then this anomaly will be really bad. But I am assuming that it now works on abilities like it should, logically. Cultivating magic. This is it'd be similar to power up, but it's like okay. Gain AP and then gain more for each 10,000 damage dealt. I think this and power up, which is the same thing but for AD, a little lower, but like it's fine. I think these are gonna be very strong. Like in solo, like in main carry instances, this is gonna be really strong. There's a lot of units that can easily do this, and this can add up to a lot really quickly. The first example I think of is like Caitlyn for power up, because she just randomly does a ton of damage. But then like if you think about it, really like any like carry can do that. Like if I think Caitlyn, then you can also think of Twitch. Any unit that's just doing a lot of damage on like the damage charts is gonna be good. If you fight like a bruiser ward where they just have a lot of health, that could be a way to cheese more damage. Or if they have like a super tank, and like you end up with like a situation where your main carry does like 20 or 30,000 damage just because the amount of health the enemy tank has, you can kind of choose more damage. But there's just a lot of like most boards where you want bonus AP or AD, and they have like a main carry. This is gonna be good, and I'll talk about it later. But like if you like sorcerers or dominators, for instance, or if you like artillerist, like or like something where you already have a lot of AP or AD, it's a little bit less valuable, but it can still be very good just because the cap can be really high. If you were to compare it to like 30% like damage amp, maybe in some situations you'd want the damage amp, but if you were to get to like 70, 80 AP versus like 30% damage amp, there might be an argument for taking the AP just because of how high the number is. I guess a similar comparison was like the faded for like the Syndra bonus versus the Ari bonus in set 11, where at some point the number is just going to be so high that you just want the flat AP or the flat AD. But yeah, I think these are going to be very strong. assuming you can get to a point where you stack them up. If you just recognize a good spot for it, these are pretty safe to take, and they're gonna be really good. And I want to compare these to Headhunter, which is similar, in that you get permanently stacking attack speed, except I think Headhunter requires that you get the kill, whereas this requires you do damage. And I think it's much easier to do damage than it is to get the kills, because even if you have more attack speed, you're not necessarily guaranteeing that you're getting the kills. Whereas if you have more AP and AD and like to do damage, like having more stacks, whatever, I mean both are technically, like having more makes it easier to do more damage. I mean the other thing you're limited by is just the amount of health that your opponents have. Okay, so next one is Cybernetic Empowerment. They changed the name, but I mean it's the same thing. So, Cybernetic Empowerment gives attack speed and then more attack speed for each component held by a team. I think I don't remember what the numbers were before, but I think they nerfed it. I mean, even before, I don't think it was that crazy, but now it's like you need to be like in a really good spot for it, because otherwise it's not that good. Attack speed is like decent, but it takes a while to get to a point where this is like better than other attack speed anomalies. By the time you get this, you will have like what, 14 components. So 14 times 2 plus 8, 36. So you'll probably start out with like 36, but if you get like bonus items from like scrap or from augments or from the portal, this can be really good. This also scales a little bit into the game. It scales less than like Headhunter, for instance, if you can optimize getting kills. But in just like a really high cap like situation, if you're playing on like Warwick or you're playing on Savika portal, or like loot subscription, or if you're playing like scrap where you can like get a lot of components, then this is gonna be more valuable. Overall, I think this is like a bit, it's still gonna be a bit weak. It has like high roll opportunity, but in most situations it's gonna be like pretty standard to like slightly below average. Hivemind, this is interesting. If you saw the YouTube videos where people were getting like like all the 3-star 6 costs, but then also like all these like dragons and raptors and stuff. This was because of this anomaly. Because the way it was coded, I guess I didn't account for the fact that you couldn't kill monsters. Yeah, and assuming that's fixed. Either way, this is a damage amp anomaly plus an econ anomaly, and that's about it. The value can be increased if this helps you get to upgraded units that you otherwise would not hit. In that case, that's incredibly valuable, but that's probably gonna be pretty rare. I think in most situations you could just treat this like money. It's just econ, just to have more money. But if you can consistently get a good amount of money, this can help you go level 9, level 10. And that value is like incredibly powerful. Not to mention that like 25% damage amp is pretty good. Like it's not like crazy. Other can do more, but it's pretty safe. Like it has the same characteristic of Comeback Story, which I consider to be one of the best anomalies in the game, in that you could take this in any situation on your main carry and you're fine. This is the same thing in that it's not like a niche situation like Force of Friendship or like Avarice Incarnates or Bully, where you have to already have a certain comp for it to be valuable. Like this, you could take in any comp and you'll be fine. It doesn't have the damage camp, the damage ceiling that Comeback Story has, or you're gonna be at 10 HP or something at some point in the game probably. So you're guaranteed to get a point in time where you get like high damage amp. I mean, you don't have like that kind of situation, but you will have a situation where you want money, and 25% flat, like just baseline, is pretty good. So I think that's fine. Infectious Anomaly. This one has been like a bit weird for a while. So the way this works is it's you put it on your unit, and then at the start of each round it jumps around and it applies itself to a different ally or the same, it's just a random ally, and then it spreads across your board, and then if your unit already has it, they get a little bit bonus stats instead of like this. So it can, once your whole board has it, you're just getting a bit more stats randomly. A couple things to note is that when you spread it, the unit that you spread it to can also spread it. So at the first round you'll have one, and then you'll have two, and then you'll have like four, maybe, and then it'll go until all your units have it. So it spreads a lot. It was initially unclear as to whether that was intended or not. Because I was told that that was not intended and that was a bug and that was going to be removed. But if they removed it, then this anomaly would be absolutely terrible. So instead of removing it, I think they just nerfed this, which I mean, if they didn't nerf it would be very strong. With this, it's still quite strong. Like you're getting essentially this on your whole board plus some random combination of this. Hopefully on a good unit. It's like a silver stand united, maybe a gold stand united augment, if you remember what that is. I think this is still going to be a very strong anomaly now. I think this is not going to be one that you would take if you're like low, because this needs to scale. Like this needs to, like, there are scaling anomalies and then there's some that like need to scale, and this is one of them. And I guess this is also another one. Like this is one, but the base value is pretty low. But like once your whole board has it, and this is gonna be very very strong. And there's a lot of comps I can use as well. So another thing, which I don't actually know if it's how it works, but it would be pretty good if it did, is that you might not need to keep the unit that you put it on. Because I think, like in theory, if it were to spread to allies, like you could pivot out of the unit that you anomalied, because like your other units on your board have it. I don't know if that's how it actually works, and I also don't know if you would choose to put this anomaly on a unit that you want to pivot out of anyway. But if you wanted to do that, I think that might be possible, where you can pivot out of it. In which case, that'd be pretty interesting. Like what I'm trying to say is like if you like put this on a Vi, and then you like later remove the Vi on your board and you just don't have her, but the anomaly still like is spreading across your board, doing its thing, but you just never like play the Vi again because you just, I don't know, you just don't want it. Like if it works that way, that'd be pretty interesting. It's not even that crazy, but it is like interesting. Titan of Teamwork. This is like a Force of Friendship kind of, but for durability. I think in most situations this one is a bit underpowered, but there are going to be a couple situations where this is going to be very strong. The examples I think of are specifically in Renata, for whoever you choose the main tank, and for like family, where you're like, these are just two instances where you're gonna have a lot of one costs. It's very easy to 3-star a lot of units, so you're gonna get more value from this. I think you need to have a lot of 3 stars for this to be good, but I don't know if I don't think there's any other durability anomalies, so that's another way to access durability. And then you have some worrying things in that Sentinel already provides a lot of defensive value, but durability is just something that most of these units don't have access to. I think in Renata now, most people are gonna main tank Rel, so Rel doesn't have any durability, so giving her access to that would be really, really powerful. And then the other instance would be family. There's different family comps to consider. Like it's not just Pit Fighter. Like I think that's the one that people are gonna think of now. But what I'm more concerned of is that with the Vander buffs, you might have a situation where Watcher family is viable because Vander gets more armor from his buff, and then family gives durability, and Watcher gives durability, and then if this now also gives more durability, I mean maybe this is better than like something that gives like a different stat, but like the point is you can in theory stack to a lot of damage reduction on that, and then you might have like an unkillable Vander. Or maybe like an unkill, like you could put this on like Violet and just play Pit Fighter family, and then that would also be pretty good. But my point is, I'm worried about the ceiling of this anomaly because it might be another mage armor situation where like in most cases it's not like crazy. I mean, in this one, I think in most cases it's going to be underpowered. At least with mage armor, the baseline is already like pretty decent. but the ceiling is like gonna be ridiculous. Uh, because like the ceiling for mage armor is like, absolutely ridiculous, and then for here, it might be similar, maybe not quite the same, but similar. Vampiric Affinity, uh, 20% Omni Vamp, and then increased one below 75% health. They changed the numbers to this to I think match like Berserker Rage, which I think it's fine. Like this was a bit weak when it was on PPE, and they buffed it a bit. So now I think this is an okay number. This is an okay number. Omnivamp is like a bit weird in that I think if the unit wants Omnivamp, you're most likely going to build items to get it anyways. So I don't know how necessary this anomaly is going to be because it's like such an important stat that you are going to prioritize it anyways. Maybe there's going to be like cases where like you just want more, and in case that's probably fine. But I don't know how many situations that's going to be where you actually want more. Like, and I think in most cases where you like want any at all, you would have already planned around that. Numbers wise, this is a bit better than it was before, but I still think there aren't going to be that many situations where you'd actually want this or need this. I'm pretty indifferent towards this one. The last one is Voracious Appetite, which just turns into set 12 Briar, pretty much, where you just have you can feed your units. Like you get this amount base, and then you get consumable, and you can feed them more in exchange for player health. There's a couple comps that could use this well, mostly pit fighters. I think of like Urgot, for instance, but there's a couple others. You can put this on maybe like Vi or like maybe Mordekaiser or something, and you can also feed that. There's like this because any like bruiserish type of units would want this. But the point is, if you have health to spare, like if you're snowballing and you have a unit that can use this well, then this anomaly is very very strong because you can eventually have like giant size and value, but you also have a ton of damage imp. And if you don't, then you obviously shouldn't. If you don't have health to spare, you shouldn't take this.